everyone, Jill here from the Cozy Company. Today I'll be guiding you through how to hand knit 3 fun Oddbod mini monsters, Raz, Blip, and GOGO. To complete your monsters, you'll need a few simple supplies: scissors, polyfill stuffing, yarn, googly safety eyes, and an optional stitch marker. Suggested yarn colors and amounts can be found in each monster's individual PDF guide. While each Oddbod has its own unique personality and features, they all share the same base body pattern. So once you've mastered one, the rest will be a breeze. For this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make GOGO. GOGO requires 3 colors. We have our main color, our contrast color, and then our second contrast color. I've linked the colors that I've used for GOGO within his PDF if you're interested, but feel free to use any colors that you'd like. GOGO is probably the easiest in terms of the body because it doesn't have too many color changes. It just has color changes when you get to the eyes. So for GOGO, I used 3 colors. I used this dark teal option, I used mustard, and I used a pure white. Feel free to use any colors that you'd like, but if you're interested in the colors that I used, they are linked within GOGO's PDF. So to start GOGO, we're going to take our main color yarn, and we are going to leave about a 6-inch tail. We're going to create a slip knot. So if you've never created a slip knot before, we're going to make a loop similar to the breast care awareness symbol where the tail is on top. We're then going to take the yarn on the bottom, the working yarn. We're going to put it up and through that loop, grabbing it with one hand and pulling down the tail at the same time. So for GOGO, we want to make our loops pretty small so no polyfill will come out. So I like to do about 1 to 2 fingers wide for our loops. If this is your first time making a stuffy, we are going to chain on 12. So what I mean by that is taking your slip knot, we're going to take our thumb and our pointer, we're going to put it through the loop going from the front towards the back. We're going to grab and pinch that working yarn. Again, the working yarn is the yarn that's attached to your ball of yarn. We're going to grab and pinch it and pull up a loop the same size. So that is 1. We're going to do the same thing through our next loops. Take your thumb and your pointer, put it through that loop, grab and pinch that working yarn to pull up another new loop. That's 2. We're going to do that a total of 12 times. So we've already done 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Once we've chained on 12, we're going to connect our chain into a circle. To do that, we're going to take our tail of our chain. We are going to put our tail through this bottom part of our foundation chain where this loop is sticking up. So you can see it right here. We're going to take our tail and we're going to insert it through the back towards the front and pull into those 2 ends meet so we now have a circle. Again, if this is your first time creating a stuffy, what you want to do is find these bumps in your foundation chain all along the top and pull up loops. So I'm going to find the first bump in my foundation chain. I'm going to insert my thumb and my pointer. I'm going to grab and pinch the working yarn from the back, bringing it towards the front to pull up a loop the same size. I'm going to go to my very next bump and do the same thing. Put my thumb and my pointer through, grab and pinch that working yarn to pull up another loop the same size. I now have 3 loops. I want to continue going all the way around until I have 12 loops total. So I now should have 12 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that was row 1. I'm going to continue pulling up 12 loops per row for rows 2 through 8, or another 84 total. Now that we've completed all 8 rows, we've completed the body portion of GOGO. Row 9 is going to start to form the legs. So for row 9, I'm going to knit through loops 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12. So I'm essentially going to take these 12 loops that I have here and divide them in half like this. So for row 9, I'm going to knit loops 1, 2, 3. And instead of going to loop 4 like we've been doing the previous rows, I'm going to knit back here for rows 10, 11, and 12. So it's up to you on how you'd like to do that. For me, I find it easiest to turn my work so my yarn is always on the inside of the body. And then I'm just going to knit these back 3. So 10, 11, 12. So as you can see, it breaks off these 12 loops into 2 sections of 6. We have 6 here and 6 here. So we're going to be working on this side, and after we've completed this side, we will come back to this side. So for rows 10, 11, and 12, we're just going to knit 6. So we're going to knit 18 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. For row 13, we're going to purl 6. So to purl 6, we are going to move the yarn to the outside of the body, like this, and we're going to push the yarn from the outside to the inside. And that is how you purl. So we're just going to purl 1 row through all 6 of these loops. Four, 5, 6. As you can see, that purl gives a nice bumped raise. So once we purl through all 6, we are just going to knit all 6 of these loops. So I'm going to bring my yarn back to the inside of the monster, and I'm just going to knit all 6 of these loops for 1 row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm then going to cut my working yarn, leaving about a 6-inch tail, and I'm going to close off my leg by taking my tail and weaving it through each of these 6 loops from the inside of the body to the outside of the body. So my very next loop, I'm going to take my tail and I'm going to put my yarn through the inside of the body to the outside, gently pulling each time. And then I'll go to my next loop and do the same thing, inside of the body to the outside of the body. And I'm going to continue that through all 6 loops, gently pulling each time. Until my leg is closed. I'm then going to tie a knot with the tail that's left. And then I'm going to insert that tail through that hole that we just closed up. I'm going to insert it enough so that way I can go through the top of the body and grab it. And pull it down nice and tight so that way it creates almost like a foot. So we've just completed one leg. We're now going to move on to the next leg. So I'm going to take my yarn And starting about 6 inches up from the tail, I'm going to pull up a loop through loop 4. So I'm going to just take my yarn like this, and I'm going to pull up a loop through the 4th loop. So if you remember, this was 1, 2, 3, and then this is 4, leaving about a 6-inch tail. We will come back to this tail after, so I'm just going to leave it hanging over the side like that. So I've just knit loop 4. I'm going to knit loops 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 now for one row. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So for the next 3 rows, just like we did on this leg, I'm just going to knit 6 all around, so 18 loops total. Again, don't worry about this 6-inch tail that we have right here. We're going to come back to it after. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. For the very next row, we're going to purl 6, just like we did on this leg. So again, I'm going to move my yarn to the outside of the leg, outside of the monster, like this, and I'm going to push the yarn from the outside of the monster to the inside for all 6 loops. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the very last row, I'm just going to knit through all 6 of these loops. So I'm going to put my yarn back into the inside of the body, and I'm just going to knit all 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to take my scissors and cut about a 6-inch tail. And same thing that we did on this side, I'm just going to take my tail and weave it through all 6 loops to close off that leg. So going from the inside of the body to the outside, through all 6 loops to close off the leg. I'm going to tie a double knot and then insert that tail through that hole that we just closed off. And grabbing it from the inside of the body, I want to pull nice and tight so it flattens that foot out. So now with that 6-inch tail that we had when we first started our second leg, we are going to use that to close off the space between these 2 legs. You see how there's a gap here? We're going to use this tail to sew back and forth to close off that leg gap so that way the polyfill doesn't stick out. So all I like to do is take that tail and go back and forth between these 2 legs to close off that gap. So I'm just inserting it back and forth between the 2 legs and pulling each time. So once I've done it a few times, I'm just going to tie a knot with that tail and tuck that tail inside the monster's body. As you can see, it just closes off that gap so no polyfill will come out. So we've just completed the body portion of GOGO. Before we fill with polyfill and close it off, we want to make sure we do our arms. So I'm going to set this aside And I'm going to grab my working yarn, and again, leaving a 6-inch tail, I'm going to create a slip knot, and I'm going to chain 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Using the same technique that we used to make the body of the monster, we are going to make our chain into a circle by taking the tail and inserting it through the back towards the front of this bottom portion of the foundation chain. We're going to pull into those 2 ends meet. So for rows 1, we're just going to pull up 6 loops. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we should have 6 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For row 2, we're just going to knit through all 6 loops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For row 3, we're going to start decreasing. So I'm going to take my first loop, I'm going to put it over my second loop, and I'm going to pull up 1 loop through both. And then I'm going to knit 1, just like normal. And then I'm going to decrease again. So I'm going to take my 4th loop and put it over my 5th loop and pull up a loop through both. And then knit 1. So now at the end of row 3, I should be left with 4 loops. So 1, 2, 3, 4. For rows 4 through 6, I'm just going to knit through all 4, so a total of 12 loops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm then going to take my loop that I just knit, my 4th loop. I'm going to sandwich together with my first loop, and I'm going to pull up 1 loop through both. I'm going to take my 3rd loop and my 2nd loop, sandwich them together, and pull up a loop through both. So I now should have 2 loops left. I'm going to take the first loop that I created and I'm going to put it over the 2nd loop like this. I want to cut my working yarn, leaving about a 6-inch tail. And I'm going to insert the tail through the back of the loop towards the front, holding on to the arm gently and pulling the tail so that way it creates a knot. Using the same technique that we used to close off our feet, I'm going to take my tail and weave it through the inside to the outside of all of this foundation chain on the top of our arm. So taking my tail, weave it through inside to outside, gently pulling each time so it will close off that armhole. I'm then going to tie a knot with my tail and then tuck it into that hole that we just closed off. We've now just completed 1 arm. I'm going to go ahead and make the other one and then I will meet you back here. Now that we've completed both arms, it's time to attach them to the body. So you can kind of eyeball where you want to attach them, but I usually like to place them somewhere around here So I'm lining up the tail of the arm in between the first and the second row from our foundation chain. So about right here. So I'm just going to sew them in. So I'm going to insert them, the tail through the outside of the body towards the inside of the body. And I'm just going to keep weaving the tail in through the outside to the inside and also through the arm at the same time. So that way I can attach them to the body. And you can do this as many times as you like to secure the arms in. I like to go up and down just to make sure. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Once you've sewn the arms in, it's now time to fill your body with polyfill and close it off. So when filling the body with polyfill, you just want to make sure that you get down far into the legs so those are stuffed as well. So once you've filled the body enough to your liking, we're just going to take this tail from our foundation chain and we're going to weave it in from the inside of the body to the out and gently pulling each time so it closes off that hole. And then I'm going to tie a knot with whatever tail's left, and I'm going to insert it through the hole that we just closed off. We've just completed the body and leg portion of GOGO. So the next step for GOGO is to create his eyes. So we're going to be working at the top of the body right here, and we're going to use our contrast color to pull up 4 loops. I'm using this mustard color, but feel free to use any color that you'd like. So we're going to pull up 2 loops in the front and 2 loops in the back. So I'm going to find somewhere close to that hole that we just closed off to pull up 1 loop, and then I'm going to go right next to it to pull up a 2nd loop. Once I have 2 loops, I'm going to pull up another 2 right behind them. So I'll have 4 loops total. So 3 and 4. I'm going to take my tail and tie it to my working yarn and tuck that tail into the body. So at this point you should have 4 loops. 2 in the front, 2 in the back. 1, 2, 3, 4. For row 2, I'm going to knit 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So for row 3, I'm going to switch back to my main color. You can use any method that you'd like for attaching, but I'm going to use the burn method. So I'm going to cut my yarn right at the base of that last loop that we just pulled up. I'm going to take my main color yarn. I'm going to light it on fire with my lighter, and I'm going to smush these 2 together So it lights my contrast color on fire as well. And then I'm going to hold for 30 seconds. Once I've connected my main color yarn back, I'm just going to knit all 4 for 1 row. For row 4, I'm going to switch back to my contrast color. So again, I'm going to use the burn method where I cut my yarn that I'm working with right at the base. I'm going to grab my contrast color, light it on fire, hold it towards my main color yarn so that one lights on fire as well. Smush them together and hold until they are no longer warm. So for row 4, I'm just going to knit all 4 with my contrast color. 2, 3, 4. For row 5, I'm going to increase. So I'm going to increase to 6. I'm going to knit 1, then I'm going to increase, then I'm going to knit 2, increase, and then knit 1. So at the end of row 5, you should have 6 loops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For row 6, we're going to knit 6, but instead of knitting through these loops right here, we're going to knit through the back of them. So this is my first loop right here. Instead of knitting through the whole of the loop, I'm going to find the back of that loop and pull up a loop through there. So you should have 2 loops that look like this on 1 row. So I'm going to do that for all 6 loops. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at this point you should have 12 loops, but we're just going to be working with these inner 6 right here. The outer 6 are just going to stay as is. So at this point I'm going to switch my color again to my second contrast color. I'm using a pure white. So I'm going to use the burn method one more time. So I'm going to cut my first contrast color. I'm going to light my second contrast color on fire with a lighter, being very careful of course. And I'm just going to burn the 2 together and hold until they fuse and no longer hot. So now that I've attached my second contrast color, I'm going to knit 6 for row 7, but I'm just going to knit the inside 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as you can see, we're knitting the inner 6 and the outer 6 are just staying as is. So for rows 8 and 9, we're just going to knit 6 again, so 12 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm then going to cut my working yarn, so I have about a 6-inch tail. And I'm going to close off these loops by weaving my tail through the inside of the loop to the outside, pulling gently each time through all 6. Then I'm going to tie a knot with my tail and stuff it in through that hole that we just closed off. So we've just completed one eye for GoGo. I'm going to do the same thing on this side and then I will meet you back here. Now that we've finished creating GoGo's eyes, the next step is to add our safety eyes. Now you can use whatever technique or safety eyes that you'd like. I chose to use these because they looked a little bit more like goofy and monster-ish. And I have linked them in the PDF if you'd like to use them as well. I have found that because the yarn is so thick and the eyes are so thick, that you cannot use them as the way intended, where they snap in like this. You have to flip the backing in the opposite direction so it snaps in like this. So to add the safety eyes, you just want to eyeball where you want to put them. I like to put them on the top part of where the white is. So you just want to kind of eyeball where you want to put them. And then we're just going to insert the backing. So once the backings are in the eye, we can just snap the backing and the googly eye together. If you'd like to have an extra safety precaution, you can add some super glue in between the two. That's what I usually do with my smaller eyes. There we go. And once we have the googly eyes in, the very last step is the claws. Now this is an optional step. You certainly do not have to do this. But what I like to do just to add a little bit more color contrast is find somewhere on the bottom. I usually like to place 3, so I'll go like 1, 2, 3. So to start, we want to take our contrast color and we're gonna pull up a loop. So I'm gonna pull up a loop here, here, and here. So I'm gonna pull up a loop and then I'm going to pull up a second loop. Once I pull up that first loop, I'm gonna pull tight on that tail so that way it tightens around that second loop. I'm then going to cut my working yarn, about a 3-inch tail, insert it into that loop that I just created and pull nice and tight. I'm then going to insert that tail to the back side of where I pulled up the loop, from the outside to inside, and then bring it back outside and tie the 2 tails in a knot and stuff them inside the monster. Now again, this is an optional step. You certainly do not have to do this. I just like to do it because it breaks up the blue of GoGo a little bit more. Feel free to use any other technique if you want, or add any other alterations to GoGo to make it your own. That's perfectly fine. If you don't want to do claws and you want to break up the color on his legs while making them, you can certainly do that too. So I'm just going to find another spot. I'm going to go right here, pull up another loop, and then pull up one more loop through that and pull down nice and tight on the tail. Cut my yarn, insert it through that loop and pull nice and tight, and then feed the tail through the back of where we originally pulled up the yarn, and then tie the 2 tails together and insert the tails into GoGo's body. So I'm going to do it one more time on the side here. Pull up a loop and then create a second loop. Once you create the second loop, pull down nice and tight on that tail. Cut your working yarn. Put the working yarn through that loop that you have from the back to the front, and pull nice and tight, and then find the space behind where we pulled up the loop and insert that tail from the outside to the inside, and then pull it back to the outside and tie those two knots together and tie those two tails together. And then I'm just going to insert the tails back into GOGO's body. As you can see the difference between with claws and without claws. The with claws just adds a little bit more of a breakup with colors, but again, feel free to do it either way. Once you've completed the second leg of claws, you've just completed GOGO. Again, feel free to use any color combinations that you like, and make sure to tag me in any of your creations so I can see what you guys came up with.